Mount Vernon's big stink, that's next. You know, we want our mayors to have big, sweeping ideas. That is part of the reason we vote for them in the first place. So I got this tickler on my WhatsApp text messaging thing this week, and it was a link to a headline in a publication I'm not familiar with called West Fair Online, and it says, Mayor pushes for cleanup of Mount Vernon's big stink on Eastchester Creek. So I've been living in this area my entire life, and I've never heard of Eastchester Creek. So I had to read this article. So let me just give you a little bit of the front end of what they're talking about here. An impending federal lawsuit could become the impetus for converting the dirty, stinky, silted, noxious, underused waterfront along Eastchester Creek in Mount Vernon into a recreation and dining destination. Well, that doesn't sound very appetizing, so I had to read on and understand what Mayor Richard Thomas, the mayor of Mount Vernon, is thinking. And he does have a broad, sweeping vision for what to do with this body of water known as Eastchester Creek. It's otherwise known as the Hutchinson River, which is what I am familiar with. Okay, so I had to use Google Maps to kind of understand a little bit better what Mayor Thomas is talking about and what these plans are all about. So right now, we are at Co-op City. We're kind of looking north, and this bridge here, this road on the right here is the Hutchinson River Parkway. So, Hutchinson River Parkway, and then Bronx to the left, and then above where those yellow dots are, that's Mount Vernon. That's where we're going to go. So this is Eastchester Creek, and if you follow Eastchester Creek in another mile or so, you will very quickly arrive in close proximity to Mount Vernon. So let's stop right there. So as soon as this bridge down here is Boston Road. This side of this creek, the lower part of the screen is Pelham Manor. The top part of the screen is Mount Vernon. So the industrial, the waterfront cleanup that is currently being discussed by the Canal Village Revitalization Plan, which is mentioned in the article, is talking about cleaning up this body of water which leads from Mount Vernon, from this Hutchinson River that comes down from the northern part of Westchester, comes down through New Rochelle and into Mount Vernon. This is what Mayor Thomas wants to develop. So if you go to the other side of Fulton Avenue, there's this thing called the Sprague Terminal. Let's see if we can get a better, more closer look at the Sprague Terminal. So the Sprague Terminal is basically oil tanks and natural gas tanks that are located in Mount Vernon. And on the other side of that body of water is Pelham Manor, and there's a shopping center down there that's got models and shopping of all kinds. There's a BJ's over there. But this is what Mayor Thomas is focused on. And if you zoom in here, these trucks in this little center area here, this is the Mount Vernon Department of Public Works. So let's read a little bit of what it says in the article. In the article, he refers to this location as the Port of Mount Vernon. A narrow creek called the Hutchinson River flows into the Eastchester Bay in the Long Island Sound. About 700,000 tons of materials, petroleum, sand and gravel, rock, salt, scrap, metal, are transported upriver to docks in Mount Vernon. The channel has become so clogged with silt that tugs and barges can only navigate at high tide. He wants to spend $4 million to clean up this public works yard, which is in the center of your screen right now, or as he puts it, getting stuff off the waterfront. So that's the DPW that he's talking about. He said that everything that the DPW has is contained on 20 acres and it can be consolidated down to 2 acres. And that the public works and the Sprague facility would be walled off with fences and greenery. So now, let's trace what he's talking about, because the vision that Mayor Thomas is sharing with us is that there will be some way to sort of develop this. I want to make it clear that this is just a stopping point here. The creek he's talking about goes around this oil and gas tank area. As you can see, you can even see from here that it's very, very low tide. I don't see how a boat under these circumstances could make it up the river, but they're working on that. But if you follow what happens as you go up this little creek, you see these baseball fields. These are actually in Pelham Manor. They're in the village of Pelham, or the town of Pelham, whatever it is over there. And there's a baseball field, there's tennis courts, and there's a very nice football field on the Mount Vernon side of the Hutchinson River, aka the Eastchester Creek. There are some other landmarks. So there's this thing called, not sure what that field is called, but there's the ice hutch, and then there's the sports underdome. So this big bubble here is the sports underdome. They play soccer there. The ice hutch is an ice rink. There's the Mount Vernon Animal Shelter across the street, and then of course there's Target. As you move further up the creek, it's a shopping center, it's a parking garage on the Mount Vernon side, and on the Pelham side, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 baseball diamonds just north of the football field. Now, if you go a little bit further up and you follow the contours of this creek, Hutchinson River, there's footpathways. It goes underneath the Hutchinson River several times, right here, again over here, and it becomes a very narrow piece of land, but there's a fair amount of foliage around it, though there are some houses. It winds its way further up, and eventually it gets to, let's see if we can see it here. I really need a different kind of mouse to do this. It winds its way further up. Let me see if I can tilt this thing back a bit. There we go. As you go further up the creek, it ends up in a little reservoir called Pelham Lake. So the right side of that highway is the village of Pelham. The left side of that highway is Mount Vernon, and this Pelham Lake, which is located in Mount Vernon, and you can see actually that creek goes underneath the Metro North Railroad tracks, which you can see right there. And then it ends up right here at the Pelham Reservoir, which is also the location of, see if I can back out a little bit, and then you can see Wilson's Waves. So Wilson's Waves is a county park. It's like a wave pool. Used to be called Wilson's Woods. And then it kind of goes north from there. It's hard to make out exactly where the water is, but it must at some point cross Lincoln Avenue and then go further up. So going back to what the mayor is saying here, the creek is rather, actually the article says, the creek is rather odoriferous. One participant at a recent Canal Village public workshop referred to it as the Big Stink. The Sports Underdome, the Ice Hutch, Glover Field, and Memorial Field are lined up parallel to the creek. Thomas would like to expand the athletic facilities in a Chelsea Piers-like glass and steel concrete structure. The mayor says, I don't anticipate people swimming in the hutch yet, but I can see them eating here and swimming in a pool and kayaking and boating and fishing. So we vote for these people because we want them to have enormous visions and pull off big things. This would be a fantastic thing to do, and it certainly would sounds like whatever they would do would have to be good for the environment. What I did not focus on, but they talk about it in the article, is there's a Clean Water Act lawsuit. They allude to it at the beginning. For 14 years, Mount Vernon has ignored the federal EPA consent decrees, according to Mayor Richard Thomas, and now the U.S. Department of Justice is about to sue the city for violating the Clean Water Act. So his idea would solve a lot of problems because it would put this land to better use and possibly solve an environmental problem. But It is a complicated one. So I thought it would be interesting to take a look at that. Sundays, there's a new vlog. During the week, on Wednesdays, I am Facebook Live. Please join me up and participate. Maybe we can talk about this at Red Blue Talk on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. Like this video, and I'll see you next week. Thanks.